Welcome to the Tax Sale Podcast, where tax sale investing is made easy. My name is Casey Denman. I'm a tax sale veteran. I am the leading tax sale expert. I'm the author of the Tax Sale Playbook, founder of the Tax Sale Academy, and I am your host right here on the Tax Sale Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast episode. This podcast can be found on a number of different channels, including Spotify Video, YouTube, and wherever else podcasts can be found. And as a reminder, this is a completely free podcast brought to you through and because of the Tax Sale Academy, which you can learn more about by visiting taxsaleacademy.com. Today I've got an interesting episode for you as we discuss how to make the tax sale business easy for you regardless of the amount of time that you have at your disposal. Time is the most valuable commodity that we have by far. If somebody asks me the reason that I invest, the answer is ultimately always going to revolve around time. See, I invest to make money. I make money to buy freedoms. Those freedoms allow me to have more time in my life. Don't get me wrong. I love the tax sale business thoroughly, and I really enjoy investing in tax defaulted real estate and helping people out like yourself. But I also enjoy spending time with my family, with my son. And I have a lot of other hobbies that take time as well. There's a saying that I live by, and that is, time is undefeated. One day, you're going to run out. How we spend our time is paramount to nearly everything else in life. There's nothing wrong with working 80 hours a week as a lot of new entrepreneurs do, but hopefully their end goal is to get to the point where they can work fewer and fewer hours to free up some excess time. It's very easy to go through life and then look back after 5 years and wonder what you did. What did you accomplish during the past year, the past 5 years, the past 10 years perhaps? So obviously, time is very, very important to what I do and how I operate my business. Now, if I'm honest, that's the entire reason that I operate this business in the first place, right? I could have chose a million different businesses, but I chose tax sale investing because of the potential income when it's matched with a time investment. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can learn or participate in the tax sale business if you have 5 or 10 minutes a week. That will be an absolute lie. You must invest time into anything if you want to succeed. And the truth is, the more time you have to invest, the faster you'll likely see that success. With that said, I also have a number of investors inside the Academy who spend just a few hours a week investing. So it's very possible for nearly everybody to do despite their schedule. And this includes doctors, attorneys, entrepreneurs, mothers, fathers, and anybody else that has an extremely busy schedule. It is very, very possible. Now, when we start at step number 1, we have to look at learning. When it comes to learning, my advice is to take the time to leverage the experience of other people as much as you possibly can. And I talk about this throughout a number of different episodes, including the episode about mentors and micro mentors and learning. There's so many episodes that I have about this topic, but it literally took me years to learn this business simply because I didn't have a single person to learn from. If you are listening or watching this podcast right now, you have somebody that can help you. I've got loads and loads of completely free trainings, and of course, if you want step-by-step comprehensive training, I have that available for you at taxsaleacademy.com once you join us. But at the end of the day, if you want to learn this business, the fastest way to do that, the most time-saving way to do that, is by learning through somebody else's experience. That's going to be the number one way to save yourself an incredible amount of time. In my case, it would have been years had I had somebody teach me this business. The next way is how you decide to set up your business from a strategic approach. There are many different ways to invest in tax defaulted real estate. Some of these are much more labor intensive than others. There are a few so-called opportunities that will hit me with ads all of the time that kind of relate to this tax sale business, but people don't realize that they are extremely labor intensive. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details, but I'm not interested in sitting down in front of my computer for 60 or 70 hours digging through owner records and stuff like that to try to make some money. Instead, I want to be able to have a high return on the time that I invest in my business. So when you set up your business, the very last thing that you want is to create yourself another job, often a low-paying job at that, because you're setting it up incorrectly and you're investing dozens and dozens of hours into this business every single week. Yet, so many people do that. They set up their business so that it sucks every single ounce of available time that they have. My suggestion here is to think about the long-term requirements when it comes to the time required from the very start. Obviously, properly setting up your business does require an understanding of how to invest. And it also might require some initial time that you spend up front learning the best solution for your specific situation based on your schedule and stuff like that. Now, let me give you a few examples. Some investors will only invest in areas where all of their required due diligence can be performed online. And I actually think this is the overwhelming majority of investors, including myself. Now, obviously, we could drive down to the county office and flip through record after record to determine what we need to know about that specific property, but that's pretty labor intensive. Obviously, the flip side is that in the areas where they don't have online records, maybe there's lower levels of competition there. So there's always some push and pull when it comes to each one of these strategies. Another strategy, some investors will bid only in areas where they can submit proxy bids so they can do so at night, or maybe early morning, or maybe midday during their lunch break, whenever they have free time. This removes the requirement that they have to be sitting in front of a computer when a live auction begins, or they don't have to attend an auction in person at all. It's a very common approach that I see used by busy professionals with day jobs that have a somewhat inflexible schedule. I've seen others who have little time and only participate in 1 or 2 auctions per year, and these are in-person auctions. So in these situations, they'll likely know the most successful areas for them based on their objectives, based on their research. Then they'll simply take a few days off of work, attending these auctions, buying properties, and then they'll sell these properties once they return home during their non-working hours. In this situation, a lot of these folks are very, very happy making a sufficient amount of income for them that will last them until next auction season. So they go to attend maybe 1, 2 auctions a year, and that's it. They're done for the year. Another strategy some investors take is they'll invest solely in vacant real estate. This removes some of the risk dealing with a structure, and it certainly eliminates the need for most maintenance and all time-consuming remodel jobs. In fact, this is a large part of the reason that I myself have enjoyed investing in vacant land over the years. Now, obviously, I've invested in many, many homes, but vacant land require a much less time investment. Another common way is to hire locals to perform drive-bys for you. This allows you to still have an accurate idea of what that property is, but it requires very, very little of your time since you don't have to travel to that area, or if you're even local, so you don't have to drive to maybe the other side of town. So you can save a lot of time simply by hiring that part of the process out. These are just a few of the ways that you can substantially reduce your time investment in this business. What you have to do is really sit down and think about how you're going to set up your business from the get-go. That way, as your business progresses, you don't find yourself stuck in a rut that takes all of your time. The next primary way to save a lot of time is to learn how to be efficient. I did a podcast a few years ago on this exact topic, talking about being an efficient tax sale investor. That's episode 97. Another more recent podcast, episode 274, I did a couple of months ago, and it discusses filtering out tax sale properties, which is a great way to learn how to be efficient when you research. Again, that's episode 97 and episode 274, and both tie closely into this topic. What I really want you to consider is just how efficient your tax sale business is set up to be. And again, this sometimes requires an upfront time investment to save a substantial amount of time down the road later on. For example, instead of researching 1,000 properties and then attending an auction only to realize there is no money to be made there because there's way too much competition, How about instead doing something as simple as taking a look at the previous auction results, spending some time analyzing them, which will help you determine just how competitive that tax sale is going to be beforehand and before you start researching all those properties. Now, when we're talking about researching properties, instead of just bouncing from one page to the next, from one property to the next, develop a system that you utilize, that you follow. So for example, when I begin my research, I'll have the auction list set up on one screen, then my browsers tab will typically be open to the tax assessor's page, the GIS page, and any other website in that area that's going to be helpful when it comes to my research. I'm also going to have my tax sale bid sheet that I'll log all this information into. But before I do anything, I'll review that auction list. I'll simply scroll through it with my mouse, and I'll figure out which properties I can immediately cross off. Maybe they are out of your price range. Maybe you recognize them as being in a bad part of town. Many of the ones that I personally cross off, I do so because I look at their legal description. I say, okay, this property is a 5-foot strip of land. Obviously, I know how to do that because I spent the time to learn how to read legal descriptions up front. But by learning how to read legal descriptions, I can now go through a tax sale list and very, very quickly knock off a big chunk of the properties within just a matter of seconds. Now, if the property's made the cut, what I'll do is I'll take and copy and paste the parcel IDs information from the tax sale list into the assessor's page. And again, that simple action of copying and pasting, that saves me from typing in all those numbers and digits from one place to the next. Simply a copy and paste. That'll take you half a second to do. Now, I'll load this information up. I'll scan the assessor's page, which I'll already know how to read because I'll have spent the time up front learning how their system operates and learning where all the key features are, like zoning, usage, size, that kind of stuff. This will help me roll out even more properties. The entire idea here, of course, is to spend as little time as possible on the properties that I know I'm not going to buy. And if it does not make this initial cut, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever that I spend more than 45 or 60 seconds looking into that property. Although most of the properties are going to be rolled out in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds. That is how you operate efficiently. That is how you save time in this business. And you can take the same approach when it comes to selling properties as well. You know, I've got episodes on buyer's list, and I teach extensively about this topic inside the Tax Sale Academy. And the purpose of a buyer's list is not just to find a buyer for that property. Obviously, we want to sell the property, we want to make money, but the purpose is to find your buyer very, very quickly. That way, again, it goes back to saving you a tremendous amount of time as you operate your business. So it brings us back to the question, will it take a large amount of time to learn how to succeed in this business? You know, I am a huge fan of investing an hour here, an hour there, and getting large returns on that time invested. I am not a fan of investing 50, 60, 70 hours and just building myself a business so I can have another job. Nobody wants to do that. I've got a number of full-time tax sale investors using many of the strategies that I discussed today that are incredibly efficient in their way that they operate their business and allows them to profit wildly. I also have many part-timers that invest 5 or 10 hours a week, often in the evenings, into their tax sale business, and they're making incredible income as so-called part-timers. Again, it's not how much time it requires, because I'm sure there's people out there that invest 40 or 50 hours a week into the tax sale business that don't make much money at all. It's all in the quality of the time you invest. If you're busy, if you have a full-time job, you got a full family to take care of, whatever it might be, you can be successful in this business if you take it serious, if you focus on this business, if you learn the proper way to do it, and if you apply a lot of the tips that we talked about today. If you are under the impression that you don't have time for this business, you are sadly mistaken and you're missing out on a huge opportunity. Instead of thinking that you don't have time, you should be focusing on how to create your business with the time that you do have. It is doable for nearly everybody. I've seen it time and time again with members now for over a decade inside the Tax Sale Academy from all walks of life with all sorts of different schedules. So again, focus on these tips and understand that with just a few hours a week, it's entirely possible to see tax sale success if you stick to it for the long term. I truly hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Tax Sale Podcast. If you did, please do me a huge favor and leave a positive review on whatever podcasting or video platform you're listening to us on today. This podcast is completely free. I don't charge a listening or membership fee for these podcast episodes, but your reviews really help us out. And they might even serve to pay it forward to somebody else who learns about this business simply because you took the time to tap a 5-star review or to leave positive feedback. As always, if we can be of any additional help, be sure to check out our website at taxsaleacademy.com. Hey, take care and make it a successful day. We'll see you next time right here on the Tax Sale Podcast. Bye-bye.